What up, gamers? I'm Jason.
I'm Julie.
And today on Dice and Dragons, we are going to be reviewing Red Rising. Now, if the name hasn't given it away already, this is based on the book series by Pierce Brown. It is designed by Jamey Stegmaier and Alexander Schmidt. It is published by Stonemaier Games and contains art by Jackie Davis, Miles Bensky, and Justin Wong. Now, Julie is going to give you a little public service announcement and tell you a little bit more about the game itself.
So this is an advanced copy provided to us by Stonemaier Games. We'd like to say thank you for including us in the review process. We appreciate it.
It's always fun to be part of the first wave. And what version of the game do we have, Julie?
We have the retail version, but we also got the upgrade pack to the collector edition.
Yeah, so we have the upgrade pack. It upgrades the components to have the same ones as the collector's edition. Now, if you're interested in seeing just the components, maybe you curious about the upgrade pack, take a look down below in the video description. You can skip ahead and check those out. You can also skip ahead to a review if you like to do that as well. Well, we've got some more stuff to talk about the game, so we are going to continue. So tell them about the game itself.
It is a competitive game that has a solo mode, so it's intended for 1 to 6 players. Ages 14 and above, and depending on how many players, it's about 45 to 60 minutes per game. Though at 2 players, we got it out at about 30 to 35 minutes.
Yeah, we had some that went 45, we had others that were really a lot shorter. What do you think about the age?
I think 12 and above probably works. I don't think there's anything questionable or scary or violent per se in this that would make it 14 and above.
It just depends on the type of player they are, because your strategy can change turn to turn. That can be frustrating for certain players. So let's talk about what is going on in the world of Red Rising and what you will be doing in the game. You are part of the society, which is divided into 14 different castes. Now, all castes are represented by a color, starting with the golds and going all the way down to the lowly reds. There's also green, pinks, whites, blues, coppers, and depending on your color, you're either part of the high colors, the mid colors, or the low colors. Now, you're going to be recruiting members of the society for your house. There are 6 houses in the game. Each has a different asymmetric power. You'll be competing against your opponents to gain the most points and become the new sovereign and take control of the society for yourself. Now, is there anything that I missed there, Julie?
No, I think you got it covered.
All right, so we're going to grab our drinks.
Yep.
We still best friends? Or are we rival houses yet?
I guess we're rival houses for now.
Oh.
We're going to take it to the table one more time.
Take it to the table one more time. Well, since I'm reading the books, I'm going to say, go Mars, rise. Let's take a look at the components for Red Rising, the retail edition, as well as its upgrade pack. We're just going to highlight what is from the retail edition and what is from the upgrade pack. The easiest way to do it is to point out those components. All of the metal components are from the upgrade pack, as well as the stack of golds that do have some foil accents, which we'll take a closer look at in a moment, and the card holders. Now, I only do have 3 of them on screen, but we do have all 6. So you can see that there is one for each of the different colors of houses. As usual, we will start by taking a look at the rule book. It has a nice layout. I like the black and red contrast. If you want to see the structure of the dystopian society, the pyramid is included on the back. The rule book is only about 7 or 8 pages. Very straightforward, easy to use to learn the game. There is also the short rule book that is included for the Automa, and it will teach you how to play Red Rising solo. I will be covering the solo version of the game in a future video that will hopefully be coming out soon. As we talked about the Automa, let's take a look at the components for it. You do get a few cards. I haven't read the rules, I'm not sure what they do. This seems to tell you where to place cards, what to do, as well as a few other instructions that are included on the larger ones. With regards to the houses, you do have 6 house tiles as well as 6 reference cards, 1 for each house. You have House Apollo, whose special ability is to take the first and last turns of the game. House Ceres, who starts the game with an extra card. and special ability lets them banish a card. You have Diana, which means whenever you gain the sovereign token, you will place 1 influence at the Institute. Mars is hanging out upside down, but whenever you gain the sovereign token, you will gain 1 helium. Minerva will let you roll the rising die when you gain the sovereign token, and Jupiter will let you gain the will let you go up the fleet track when you gain the sovereign token. And there's the 6 reference cards that come for each color, explains the setup, the end of the game, as well as the turn overview and the iconography. As it's rather straightforward. You know what? It's going to look better. I'm going to take the 10 seconds, just put those setup cards back at the bottom. Here is the score pad to help you with scoring. We have our nice container here of the helium-3, which is covered. I always enjoy these crystals that I've been seeing everywhere ever since I picked up Thanos Rising. Here we have the rising die, which you'll be rolling to get different results depending on what you do during your lead action or your special ability. We can take a look at the differences between the retail edition components and the metal components for the collector's upgrade. You'll just notice that you got a very nice finish. I really like the metal components. They all have good weight to them compared to the plastic components. As you can see with the colors next to each other, the metal can be a little bit harder to distinguish, especially with some of the glare you're seeing from our lighting. So I'll pick up just the ones that I don't think are the most clear so you can try to get a better look. The difference between the purple. We'll take a look at, I'll just clean this up. The green. And then the gold is just very shiny in general, but it stands out very well. During our gameplays, Julie and I did find that the green and the blue could blend a little bit together, as do the purple and the red. We'll just put the two of them next to each other. But other than that, we much prefer having the metal components. There's just a great weight and feel to them, and we do enjoy our deluxeified games. This is a game that I will most definitely be sleeving. We've taken a look at everything but the cards. So we'll start by taking a look at some of the cards. You'll get some of your fan favorite characters, like the main character Darrow. As you can see, he's a red. And I just want to start with him. Let's flip over the next set of cards. We've got Sephi, an Obsidian Assassin, the Seer, a Justice. Just flip over to the back here. We've got Orion, a blue pilot, Octavia Alun, who is the Sovereign, Holiday, who's a gray security. We've got Victra, group counselor. We've got Uncle Nero, Nero, a gold, an online gambler, Peleus. And as you can see, we've got the victory points, deploy abilities, maybe an endgame ability, and some endgame scoring stuff. So this is just a sample as to what you're going to be seeing from the cards. Now, if you do get the upgrade pack, all the gold cards will be upgraded to have some nice foil accents on them. And I think it just it fits really well with the theme of the game, as the golds are the ruling class of this dystopian society. Now, the last thing we need to do is take a look at the board. Now, the board is very clear, I find, not that large. So you've got your fleet track at the top, a place for your Institute tokens, which is right here. We have Jupiter and Mars. We do have Luna and the Institute. We also have a place for your cards. Then on the back here, we have some beautiful art from the world of Red Rising. So there you have it. We've now taken a look at all of the components for Red Rising, the board game, and keep it right here as we're going to teach you how to play the game as well as set it up. Now we're going to take a look at how you set up Red Rising. So we do have our board, we have the Sovereign token, the first player token, our Rising die, and we have one of the reference cards. Now, the first step with regards to setting up the game is going to be getting the houses selected and chosen. So you're going to shuffle them up and then deal them out to the players. Now we are going to be showcasing a two-player game. So in this case, we have dealt out Ceres and Diana. Now, just for visibility reasons, I've already decided to play with Jupiter and Minerva. I'm going to place both of the house tiles here where they're readily visible. Normally, this would all go in your own play area. Now we're going to place the tokens on the fleet track in the 0 spot. I am using the upgraded components. As this is a 2-player game, we need to put a little bit of a spoiler in the Institute. You'll place 3 cubes from any other color that is not being used in the game. And then we're going to just put the influence cubes for both colors in a place that's easily accessible near the board. Now we do need to take the helium tokens and get them set up. So we're just going to pop the lid off and place it in the center of the board. Now I have already shuffled up my deck of cards. So the cards will be placed in the center of the board. You will then deal out 2 cards to each location. And then after that, we'll deal out 5 cards to each player. Now you may be wondering why I'm not using the card holders. Because we're going to be doing a how to play, I wanted to make sure that all the cards were readily visible. So player 1, Jupiter, will be along the top with Minerva along the bottom. Now I'm just going to deal out 5 cards. So we'll just take 5. And these are all of the cards that Jupiter will readily have in their hand. And I really wanted them to be readily visible to all the players. And then we're going to take 5 cards and we'll slide. We got a little bit of room, so let's slide things down. And we've got another 3. These are the cards that we have for player 2, Minerva. So there you have it. We're now set up and ready to teach you how to play Red Rising. Let's just spread these out a little bit. So keep it right here and we'll be right back. Now we're going to teach you how to play Red Rising. The first thing we need to do is determine who the first player will be, as the token will not be passed from player to player during the game. If you start as first player, you will remain so for the entire game. If Apollo happens to be in the game, as their special ability is to take the first and last turns of the game, they will automatically start as the first player. Now to keep everything simple, we're going to have Jupiter be the first player, as they are player 1 with their cards across the top. Now, there are 2 actions that we can take during our turn. We'll take a look at both of them. They are called Lead and Scout. So the one that we're going to discuss first is Leading. It means that you deploy a card from your hand face up on any of the locations. You may then gain the top card of the deck and roll the rising die and gain its recruiting bonus. You may also gain the top card from another location and then gain that card's location bonus. So there's a couple of different things that you can do with regards to deploying, as well as gaining, one of the most important parts, their deployed effect. Now before we cover Leading in full details, let's take a look at the anatomy of a card. So here we've got the Quietus. We have what it's worth at the end of the game. It's listed as a blue, classified as a pilot. Its deployed bonus is, if deployed on the Institute, advance 1 on the fleet track. And then if you happen to have the most influence on the Institute, you'll gain an extra 16 bonus points. For Bone Riders, they're worth 15 points at the end of the game. You will gain the Sovereign token, and if with a gray or a if with a jackal or a gray, they will be worth an extra 15 points at the end of the game. Now we're not going to go through all of them, but there are some specific cards that may have some end of game abilities. So as you can see here, Trig, you may treat this card as if it is any one other color in addition to gray, which is pretty cool. And then for each gray and yellow cards that are out on locations, it is worth an extra 5 victory points. Now, this symbol here is for the endgame effects. They will only come into play during scoring. So let's go through what we can do with regards to deploy. So in this case, I'm going to deploy the Quietus. So if deployed on the Institute, I will gain an extra effect. So we get to advance 1 on the fleet track. So I'll go up by 1. Now I have 2 options. I may claim a card from Jupiter, Mars, or Luna. Now, if I happen to claim a card from Jupiter, I would gain the bonus of going 1 up the fleet track. If I choose the Surgeon and gain the card from Mars, it would be 1 helium. If I chose to gain the card from Luna, I would then gain the Sovereign token and trigger my special ability, which for Jupiter is to go 1 up the fleet track. As I played the Quietus on the Institute, I cannot gain its bonus, but if I'd played it someplace else, I would be able to take the Gardener and place one of my influence cubes on the Institute space. Now, the other option that we do have is if we do not like any of the cards, I may reveal the top card of the deck, add it to my hand, and roll the rising die, and then gain its bonus. Now, in this case, as we've seen the top card, and I've rolled the rising die, I think that's a pretty good overall result. So we'll go up 1 on the fleet track. It will now be Minerva's turn. So we'll take a look at what we have here. So we have a Pulse Armorer. You may gain a grade from this location if you do end your turn. Now what that would mean is if I decided to deploy him to Jupiter, I could gain Bridge if I so choose. We have Antonia Gold. So you can choose an opponent. They must banish one of their cards. Then you banish Antonia. Now it is important if you do banish cards that they remain in a pile near the board, that they're somewhat visible. You'll notice that with the Psychologist here, you may place, not deploy, so you don't get any deploy bonuses. So just remember the differences between that. 1 or 2 banished cards on the top of 1 location. So banished cards can come back into play. We've got Quicksilver, which lets you steal 1 helium from an opponent. We've got Darrow that lets you gain any other non-gold from this location, then banish Darrow unless you played him on top of a gold. We have the Telemanuses, so you may move all cards under this card from this location to the top of another location in the same order. So some interesting stuff, nothing that I actually really like, to be honest. So you don't always have to go with their effects. And in this case, Antonia has some nice bonuses there for the Jackal and 2 other gold. So we have another gold. You might want to try to get Pax of Telemanus or the Pax, but it'll depend on what comes out of here. But we're going to play the Pulse Armorer. Actually, you know what? Not the Pulse Armorer. We're going to play Quicksilver. Now, why am I doing this? Because if any opponent is more helium than you, you'll get minus 30 points, and I really don't like that. Now, as we can banish some cards, I'm going to see about getting the Psychologist. So we're going to play Quicksilver over on Jupiter, making getting its bonus a little less attractive. We are going to take the Psychologist, as we do like the card. As we took something from Luna, we now gain the Sovereign token. Now, Minerva's ability, whenever you gain the Sovereign token, even if you already have it, you would roll the rising die and gain the corresponding bonus. If the result is the Sovereign token, this result here, you can pick any bonus. So we're going to roll the die. Now, this bonus means that we will reveal a card, and if you're wondering where you can find a helpful list for all of the references, well, that is contained in the rule book. So I'm just going to grab it. And you can see it right here. So you may banish the top card of a location of your choice, reveal the top card of the deck and place it. You can gain the Sovereign token or keep it, gain 1 helium token, advance 1 on the fleet track, or place 1 influence on the Institute. Now, this is probably my least favorite reward. So we'll reveal the top card. So it's Pax O Telemanus. Now, looking at the cards that we have, this is actually a really good draw. And we want to maybe pull them from the Institute. Right now, we can see that Jupiter is going up the fleet track. It goes with their special power. They may be a little less interested as to what is at the Institute. So we're going to go through another turn of the game, and then we'll be getting into our review. So let's take a look at what we're going to be doing. So we've got the Firewall Experts, It was very interesting. You can look at the top 3 cards of the deck, place one of them face down at the top of each location. These cards are considered colorless while they're face down. So that's fairly interesting. Now we still want to go up the fleet track. So if deployed on Mars, advance 1 on the fleet track. It's not so bad. And you know what? We're gonna go ahead and do that. We're gonna stick with our strategy. We like doing different things and scoring more points. We're not ready to necessarily scout. So we'll place the Invictus on Mars. Go 1 up the fleet track. Now we could take the Sovereign token, but Quicksilver could potentially be good. We might decide to pick up Invictus again. So we're going to take Quicksilver, add him to our hand, and gain the bonus and go up the fleet track once again. So that's fairly interesting. We'll take a look at what we want to do with regards to player 2. So we have some interesting stuff that we can do. And I actually want to show you just how you can use some abilities like Darrow's. So we'll imagine for a second that we have another card here, the sponsor, and we cannot get Pax Otelmanis. Now, we could then play Darrow to this location. You'll see that his ability is gain any other... Oh, sorry. No, this is not the card that I thought. It would have to be gaining a gold. So we're not going to play Darrow, actually. We could gain any other non-gold. This would actually be a better card right now in the hands of player 1, who may want to grab Morningstar, the Quietus, or the Invictus. So at this point, don't have any really great deploy abilities, but we do want to get Pax Otelmanis, so we're just going to go ahead and play the Pulse Armorer. He's not necessarily all that interesting, so we'll deploy him to Luna. We're going to take Pax Otelmanis. We will add him to our hand and gain 1 influence at the Institute. Now it's important to note that he has a blocking ability, so when an opponent tries to steal or banish your cards, you may just reveal the card to block them, so he's very defensive. Now, if you can gain an Obsidian or Mustang, you'll be worth another extra 20 points, but he's giving us 15 points because of the Telmanises that we have. Now, we're just about done taking a look at how to play the game. We're going to cover scouting now, so we'll go through 2 scouts with each of our players, and then we'll be coming at you with our review of the game. So with regards to scouting, what you then do is reveal the top card of the deck. You will then place it, and then gain the bonus from the location. As our first player wants Helium because of Quicksilver, makes sense, we will place the sponsor on Mars, gain 1 Helium. Now, I did not actually complete what I was doing with the Pulse Armor. I forgot to... No, I did complete everything, so sorry about that. Just wanted to make sure I don't miss anything. So let's go ahead and do a scout with Minerva. So we scouted the Reporter. We've been enjoying going up at the Institute, so we'll place the Reporter at the Institute. You'll gain another influence. So there you have it. That's how you play Red Rising. Now keep it right here, as Julie and I are going to be coming back at you with our review of the game. So Red Rising, what did you think of the game, and what do you want to talk about first?
I want to talk about the components first. I really enjoyed the upgrade pack components. To be very honest, that's what we played with. We had the card holders and the metal cubes and the metal plane.
It's not a plane, it's a spaceship.
Okay, well, in any case, they're very pretty. They're blingy. The only little negative I would say is they're a little bit difficult. There's a couple colors that are a little bit difficult to tell apart. I don't know if you're colorblind. We are not. So I don't know if you're colorblind, if there's a little bit of difficulty telling the difference between the pink and the red and the gold and the bronze.
I was, if you heard that little bit of a giggle, it's because we had difficulty telling the components apart. The blue and green are very similar, as Julie said, the gold and the bronze. The purple and red are probably the 2 that are similar, but the most distinct out of all of them. I would say, though, if you are colorblind, you may be better off with just the retail components. The colors are a lot clearer. And you can definitely check that out if you happen to skip ahead to the review. Down below in the video description, we've got timestamps. We've got both components visible, so feel free to go back and take a look.
So I think that the card holders definitely are a plus. There's a lot going on in this game, even at 2 players, and I can only imagine at higher player counts how things are moving a lot faster. So
I don't know if it's moving a lot faster, but definitely shuffling up and changing.
So basically, I'm very happy to say that this is a competitive game. I beat Jason every time except for one.
Yes, and I made a giant mistake in the first game, and Julie exploited that very well and got the victory, but it did showcase some of the flaws in the 2-player game. Are we done talking about the components or anything else you want to add?
Well, I would say the cardstock is, I do enjoy the cardstock and the colors. I do think that this is a very pretty game, and I do like the components and the way it's set up.
Now, I have to agree, the components are very nice. I really like the holder that has the symbol from the front of the box for all the helium tokens. It's got a small board. The art is amazing. If you're a fan of Red Rising, you're going to see a lot of your favorite characters come to life. There's that fantastic art that is also on the back of the board. So just the production value overall, there's been a lot of care taken with Red Rising. And if you do happen to get the collector's edition, you will get the gold foil box, all the upgraded components, as well as the numbered version of the game, as there is only a limited run of the collector's edition. Now we've got the retail version, we've got the upgraded components. I don't see any need for us to go after a collector's edition.
No, so the only thing I would say about the card holders is I did knock over my cards quite a few times because the card holder can tip. But I don't think
we don't actually tip the card holder. We definitely tip the cards though, like a few times.
Yeah, I don't know. In any case, it's just nitpicky at this point.
But very useful. I really enjoyed them.
Yeah. So you were going to talk about the flaws of a 2-player game.
So in a 2-player game, the way it's part of the structure of the game, so we'll talk about that, is every player has to have an equal amount of turns, except for House Apollo. They get an extra turn. That is their ability. But what will happen in a 2-player game is that the second player will always get another turn. So if you're trying to get the sovereign token, your opponent pretty much always has a chance to take it from you, which will eliminate certain strategies and certain cards from being good for you as the first player, because they may require the sovereign token in order to maximize points. And for the second player, just taking the sovereign token is an easy 10 points to add to their score.
Yeah, so for me, that was one of the things that I found made it easier to catch up or to have a little bit more influence on the game, is that when I was a second player, I knew that I could always end the game without you being able to do anything about it. So when you know that you can end the game, basically the end game...
Well, let's talk about the end game conditions.
Well, I was going to say, so the end game finishes when you have, in a 2-player game, when you have 7 of one of the 3 ways to get victory points.
Yeah, so there is the fleet track, there is the influence at the Institute, and helium.
Yeah.
So one player has to have 7 in 2 of those, or between all of the players, and this is it, not in a 2-player game, obviously, all 3 of them have to be at 7. So one person has to have 7 fleet, one has 7 in the influence in the Institute. Having the 2 eyes always makes me almost choke on it a little bit. And one person has to have 7 helium. At that point, you will be going into the end game. And each player will get one final turn to make sure everyone has that equal number of turns.
Yeah, so, you know, for me, a few times it was possible for me to end the game. Either I already had the sovereign token, or I was able to end it somehow without Jason being able to take over. And when I think the only game I didn't win was the game that I was first player, I think.
I think that might have been the case, actually. And in our first game, when she won, I made the mistake of going for a combo with Cassius, which required the sovereign token. And Julie did not have a better move on the table. So she did the smart thing of taking the sovereign token, which cost me probably about a total of 40 points, which put her well over the, well, actually 50 points because of the 10 points for the sovereign token, which put her well above my score. So that's one of the things that happens in a two-player game. You also just have less cards in play.
Yeah, so I mean, the first 3 games that we played, there was a lot of movement in the cards, either because of the scouting or just the way the cards were coming up. The last game we played, and Jason and I, it's funny, we both talked about it, there was really no strategy or no consistent strategy for either of us. The cards that came up in my case, the cards that were there and the cards in my hand just really didn't line up. So I decided to just see what would happen. And in all honesty, through the entire game, I really didn't have a strategy except to try to minimize cards that would cost and just maximize the cards that I could potentially hold on to, all the while hoping that something good would pop up that would just mesh everything together. And I got the highest score I've gotten so far and beat Jason handily. So
yes, but the interesting thing about that game is you beat me because you kicked my butt on the fleet track, the helium track, and in the Institute, and I just got no cards that gave me any type of advantage to go up the fleet track, to do anything with the Institute or helium. It was really tough, but I still put up a monster score with the cards in my hand. I'd say from the cards that came out of our hands, we even beat some of our earlier scores in the game. So it just goes to show you how you can score points in the game and that you're never really like out of the game. And it was still fun. It was a little frustrating when Julie ended the game because I saw a few opportunities to get back into it. But I knew, like, just the way things were going, that I was pretty much in trouble.
So for me, if we go on to the positives about the game, the things that we really liked, I like the speed of which this plays. This is 30 to 45 minutes when it's a 2-player game. And so for that, it's a lot of fun. For me, we're playing with cards. There's characters. The powers really don't come into it too much, I find. They're really not all at the same level. But that being said, they don't really come into play all that much.
I don't know. When you were playing Jupiter, you won because you were playing Jupiter. The way you played it with the cards and the fleet track, you just skyrocketed.
But I also got cards that helped me through that. So
yeah,
there's the luck of the draw as well, and that can be frustrating. And the last game, like I said, the cards didn't line up. But the point I guess I want to make is it's still fun, and I still had fun. And this is one of these games that I can't wait to get back out post-pandemic when we can play with other people. I really do think that this is going to be a lot of fun at 4 players, and I can't wait to see if it's that much better at 6 players, because I think the cards will move a lot more, and I think it'll be less about trying to, though this game was not really about trying to outwit you or outscore you, it was really just about trying to maximize my own hand. I think there'll be a lot more moving parts when we have more players.
And I know that there's been a critique on a lot of different Stonemaier games like Wingspan, where they call it sort of like multiplayer solitaire, where you're really doing your own thing. There is still a high amount of player interaction in Red Rising. The way you place the cards, the cards that you play in different locations, triggering their abilities, some of the abilities to banish cards from other players' hands, as well as the defense, means that you will be having a lot of player interaction. And you do need to pay attention to what other players are picking up. If someone picks up a card that combos very well with a card in your hand, you may not want to get rid of it until you know that they're not going to have an opportunity to pick it back up. And that's one of the things that Julie did, and it worked out very well in her favor. There was one game where she still won, but I knew I was frustrating her because I kept banishing the cards that comboed with the cards that were in her hand. So
that's okay. I got him back on the final game because he went out and picked up 2 cards out of the banish pile and put them, and I knew he was trying to set something up, and I used one of my cards to banish them right back to the pile. So.
Yes. And talking about the powers of the cards and playing with more players, that is definitely going to make the game a lot more fun. For example, I had the card Timony that can score you a lot of influence at the Institute, provided that you get some golds in that Institute row. And that's something that just didn't happen in a lot of the games that we were playing. And part of the reason was it's only the two of us playing cards. So sometimes we're passing cards back and forth, and we're not seeing just the factor of having it'd be an extra, 20 cards in play, essentially, out of a 112 card deck. So that really makes a big difference when you're playing with 6 players. You're going to have a lot more variety and a lot of different moving parts. Now, if you like building a strategy from the moment you start to the end, this game has the potential to frustrate you because things are going to be changing very quickly, especially with higher player counts. If the first player puts down a card that you want, there's probably going to be a few other players that are going to go before you. That card can get buried and not be available for you to pick up, or it can be grabbed by someone else.
And I would say, though, that I'm the type of player who does like to have a strategy. I like to know what I'm going to do. And the thing I would say about this game, though, is that I never really felt like I absolutely had to have a strategy. Even though that's the way I normally play. So I think there's a little bit of a caveat that, yes, you may get frustrated if you definitely love to have a strategy or you like to stick with your strategy, but I'm kind of proof that that's not necessarily the case. So,
no, and I have to agree with you because my strategy changed all the time. And what you really have to do in Red Rising, what I love about it, is there's always opportunities coming up on the board. So you may have a pink card in your hand, and then, so guess what? That gold combos very well with a pink. So you want to pick that one up, and then you want to play this other card that you weren't sure if you were going to keep or if you were going to let go. But what you really got to do is every turn, take a look at what's out there, look at your hand, make the best play to maximize your overall points. And that's really what I'd say the strategy to the game is. And it's a lot of fun. I really like the fact that everything changes every turn because that just means that you don't have to, you should always be paying attention, but you don't need to be like hyper focused on the game all the time in order to make sure that you're going to win. You can really pay attention, still have a good time playing with everyone. You can also probably socialize just a little bit with the players that aren't playing and still come out with some very nice scores.
Yep.
So, Red Rising by Stonemaier Games. What is your score for this game?
It's an 8.5 for me.
I gotta say, this is also an 8.5. I really love the quick play time. I think just with the way our lives are changing, having games that we can play once, twice, 3 times is actually something that I'm beginning to value more. I really want to take this out of the game night and not just play once with like 4 or 5 people. I'd like to get 2 or 3 games in just to see how people get familiar with it and how much fun that we can actually have playing it over and over again. I think I'm just not enjoying those 2-3 hour games as much as I used to, except for those dungeon crawls. Those still have a special place.
So I'm surprised, Jason. How come this isn't a 9 for you?
Why isn't it a 9? Well, if a 2-player game was a little cleaner, it would probably be a 9. Just that a little shift in the balance of power between the first and the second player, and while being first player can still be advantageous, the fact that it's very hard to get the sovereign token and the second player can almost always take it, which gives him 10 points. It can really just sort of put an X on a lot of strategies, is the thing that drops it down to an 8.5.
I agree. I have to say, though, that this is probably, it's still early in the year, but this is probably my favorite game of the year so far.
Oh, it's beating Arnak and Dune?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So I'm actually going to come out and say I'm pretty sure we're going to come back out with a second look at this once we've gotten an opportunity to play it with multiplayers. Because I have a feeling it's either going to go up or we might get a little frustrated with it. So we'll see. But for us, for Jason and I, this is definitely a great game for us to play together. And it's going to see a lot more table time, I think.
Yes, no, this is probably, well, not probably, it is my favorite Stonemaier game. It hits all the buttons that need to be pressed right now. We'll definitely do a second look at the game, but I am so surprised by this, and I think if you're a fan of the books, you're going to get exactly what you want. If you're looking for just an awesome hand management, engine building game with just the right amount of player interaction, and you're looking for a new game for your shelf, you definitely want to pick this up. Also, if you're wondering where you can find it, well, the pre-orders have gone live on StoneMaierGames.com. So take a look down below in the video description and you can go take a look and see if there's any collector's edition copies left. You can always get the retail version, and if you want those sweet, sweet components, well, don't worry, you can still get the upgrade pack.
So that was time to remind you to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell to be notified when we have some new content for you.
And also you can take a look once again down below in the video description to find links to all of our social media feeds. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If you'd like to see pictures of Julie and I playing Red Rising, there'll be plenty on those feeds. And if you would like to support the channel, you can take a look at our link to multizone.ca. That is our discount code. You will get 10% off your next purchase. They're located in Gatineau, Quebec. So if you're from there and you watch the channel, well, you know where to go, and maybe even where you can pick up your copy of Red Rising once it's finally available to retailers.
Or one of the other Stonemaier games.
Yes, there's lots of great ones as well. We do love Wingspan.
I was going to say, so in front of Jason, we'll have a link to our most recent video, and in front of me, let's put the link to Wingspan.
Which one? Oceania or the regular game?
Oceania.
Okay, there you go. So the Oceania expansion. And now what time is it?
It's time to grab our drinks.
Grab our best friends since we're friends again.
We're going to keep playing games.
Keep playing games. We're going to keep playing this one. I think this is going to end up in the top 10 list, unless it goes down on that
we'll see
revisit, huh?
We'll see at the end of the year if it ends up on the top 10 list for the year.
Yep.